Hello there, my name is Tommy Bonas, and in this series I will be analyzing existing ancient Hellenic battle scenes in movies or other popular media and react to their accuracies or inaccuracies. In this episode, I will be looking into Hector's duel with Ajax and Patroclus. So, the Trojans that survived the previous battle ran home to tell their friends about how they saw a time-traveling Germanic warrior wielding a two-handed halberd mace hybrid and a Romanesque tower shield. Their friends didn't believe them, but they became believers once Ajax, played by Tyler Mane, unleashed his fury upon them, a fury that would later manifest into a royal beatdown. No pun intended. Hector, played by Bana, knows he must fight this beast of a man and decides to do so with a telegraph charge. Not his brightest idea. He even loses his helmet in the exchange, since apparently these Trojans didn't believe in chin straps. Ajax would then lightly tug on Hector's shield, causing him to throw it away and me to want to pull my hair out. Moving on, Hector figures that blocking a downward swing of a two-handed mace with a sword is a good idea. He actually stops it. That's pretty impressive. He still does it a backhand slap though. Let me just say that the deflections and the dodges in this scene are actually pretty well done, but you gotta start wondering why none of the soldiers in the background are intervening. Seeing as Hector is elusive, Ajax figures a bear hug is a sound technique to use while fighting between two armies, taunting Hector in the process. But Hector wants none of it, and he is released from the clasps of Ajax, stunning him with a well-placed headbutt. He then finds a spear on the ground, making him wonder why he's been using a sword this whole time. Once again, his grip strength fails him, dropping the spear after a single thrust. After Hector falls yet again, he this time conveniently finds a shield on the floor and comes to another realization. Shields are actually pretty useful too. Seeing his attack fail, Ajax is stunned. He's come to a life-altering revelation. Indeed, my friend, puny shield does block. He is so flabbergasted and disappointed in himself that he no longer has the will to live. He lets go of his weapon and stands like a deer in headlights. Meanwhile, it's Hector's lucky day. He finds yet another spear on the ground, the most convenient of moments. But Valhalla would never accept Ajax if he simply laid down and died. Ajax must fight Hector to the very end. He smacks him with the butt end of that spear that he impaled him with, and that's actually pretty funny. I mean, there's winning the lotto 3 times in a row type of lucky, and then there's this. Now Hector finds a sword on the ground, and he stupefies Ajax with a parry he learned at a Krav Maga demonstration and impales him once again. Ajax has lost to the power of the script, and Achilles is disappointed. Anyway, yeah, this duel is below par. It's just Deus Ex Machina used over and over again, with extremely poor choreography and not a semblance of technique that resembles anything ancient Hellenic. In fact, if I were to show this duel to someone who's never seen the movie before, and tell them it's a battle between a Roman legionnaire and a Germanic warrior fighting in a desert, they'd probably believe me. A 2 out of 10, but only for that smack with the butt end of the spear. Now, this fight scene is yet another example of why sometimes it's just better to follow the source material. If they had done so, it would have made more sense and even been more entertaining. To prove the point, let's see what really transpired when the two duked it out. But first, a bit of backstory. After a long drawn-out battle, the goddess Athena, together with the god Apollo, devise a plan to bring the conflict to an end, at least for this day. The sage Helenos catches on to their vision and informs Hector that he must challenge the Achaeans to fight him in a one-on-one battle, as it is not his fate to die on this day. Hector fancies the idea and follows through, challenging anyone who dare face him into single combat. The Achaeans at first went silent, except for the courageous Menelaus, who, after scorning the Achaeans, went forth to accept the challenge himself. That's right, I'm talking about this guy. In the words of Homer, now Menelaus would the end of life have appeared for thee at the hands of Hector, seeing he was mightier far, had not the kings of the Achaeans sprung up and laid hold of thee. Then, after the old and wise Nestor gave a speech to lift the spirits of the Achaeans, 9 individuals stepped up to accept the challenge, a few of which include Agamemnon, Diomedes, Odysseus, and of course, Ajax. Now, each one of them marked their lot and cast it into a helmet. After drawing a name, it was revealed that indeed, fate had chosen Ajax the Great. Moving on to the duel, Hector begins by hurling his javelin, which struck Ajax's shield, yet was unable to penetrate all 8 of its layers. Ajax follows suit, but his javelin pierces Hector's shield and armor, but was ultimately dodged by Hector as he bent to the side. They then drew their spears and attacked in close quarters. Once again, Hector is unable to break Ajax's guard, but Ajax is able to perforate Hector's shield with his spear and drew blood by gashing his neck. After falling back, Hector grabs a stone and throws it towards Ajax, striking his shield. Not to be outdone, Ajax responds in similar fashion, casting a stone which bashes in Hector's shield and causes him to fall on his back. With Apollo's assistance, Hector is able to stand back up and carry on. The two would then be smiting each other with their swords in close quarter combat had two heralds not held forth their staves and called for an end of the duel, since the darkness of night was approaching. In a display of honor and nobility, Hector, who initially issued the challenge, agrees to the ceasefire and requests that he and Ajax exchange gifts to one another, so that Achaeans and Trojans alike may thus say, "The twain verily fought in rivalry of soul-devouring strife, but thereafter made them a compact and were parted in friendship." Ajax agrees, the two exchange gifts, and are accepted with great honor by their respective sides. Next, let's move on to Hector's duel with Patroclus. So we have the Trojan army attacking the Achaeans at dusk, with the Trojans all spread out in a single line for some reason. Achilles then shows up, but he has different colored hair, different stature, even different body language. Hey, if Odysseus thinks it's him, who am I to disagree? If it was Patroclus, it would be Garrett Hedlund playing the role. So I'm not sure why the Myrmidons would choose to charge an opposing enemy that holds the high ground. Have they learned nothing? Anyway, high ground matters not when two masses clash indiscriminately, and we get all sorts of shaky cam and choppy editing to prove it. Achilles, like Hector, enters the battle with his spear, and then is immediately shown with a sword. Damn disposable one-use spears. Now, given the size of the Trojan army, which seems to span several hundreds of yards, the fact that Patroclus and Hector meet in battle is pretty lucky. But Hector's luck has already been established in his duel with Ajax. In the Iliad, battles were stretched out across smaller areas, but the fights were also a bit more scattered. As a result, heroes would face opposing rivals, but not always the ones they sought out to find. In the final battle, Achilles had slain a large portion of the Trojan army by the time he was able to find Hector. For this duel, we begin with a stare down in a small closed circle that has been created by the shields of the two opposing armies. Most duels in the Iliad begin with a toss of a dory, so again there is far more space between the two combatants. Once again, there are no spears in hand, but rather only swords, further establishing the medievalization. Now, if you were hoping that the poor editing would extend as far as the chaotic clashing of the armies, you'll be quite disappointed to see that it continues even during the duel. Achilles really oversells the pushback of that block. But then Hector gets him. A quick slash to the throat, and Achilles is down. Wait. Oh no. You're saying it wasn't Achilles? It was actually Patroclus? I also like how as soon as Hector takes off his helmet, you can hear a unanimous as if the Trojans would really care if it was Patroclus or not. Hector delivers the coup de grace and declares, "Enough for one day." Even though the battle just started, it's still daytime, and he just demoralized the entire Achaean army by slaying who they thought was their savior. We even hear a "Troy! Back to the city!" What? I bet the soldiers way down the line are all saying, "Hey, what's going on? We're leaving? What happened? Come on, what do you mean he killed the dude?" So the deal was pretty bare bones, but quick and to the point, which is better than long drawn out nothingness. I'd give it a 3 out of 10. If you're wondering what really transpired in the duel between Hector and Patroclus, you'll probably be surprised to hear that there actually was no duel between the two. After a series of defeats, the Trojans have now advanced to the point where they are threatening to burn the Achaean ships. The last line of defense for the Achaeans is Ajax. That's right, this guy, who has been fighting non-stop but is overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Patroclus asks for Achilles to return to battle, but Achilles is indifferent to the situation. He sees the downfall of the Achaeans as retribution for their hubris. Still, Patroclus has made up his mind to rejoin the battle. He requests that Achilles lends him his armor in hope that the Trojans may think he is Achilles and fall back. None of the Achaeans actually mistook Patroclus for Achilles. Achilles agrees, but only under the stipulation that Patroclus does not pursue the Trojans any further than the camps of the Achaeans. In doing so, Patroclus would rob Achilles of his honor. Hector had already begun burning Achaean ships when Patroclus, together with 2,500 Myrmidons, joined the fray. Now the tide of battle swiftly turns against the Trojans, especially when Patroclus slays the son of Zeus named Sarpedon. Seeing the act, Hector proceeds to mount his chariot and retreat. Patroclus is unable to stop his urge for battle and pursues the fleeing Trojans, slaying many in his wake. In the words of Homer, then would the sons of the Achaeans have taken high-gated Troy by the hand of Patroclus. For around and before him he raged with his spear. Had not Philus Apollo taken his stand upon the well-builded wall, thinking thoughts of bane for him, but bearing aid to the Trojans. Apollo warned Patroclus not to attempt to enter Troy, and at first Patroclus held back. But when he saw Hector and his chariot approaching, he could not but attack them. Wielding a spear in one hand and a stone in the other, he threw the latter and slayed Hector's charioteer. A fight then broke out around the body of the charioteer, where Patroclus slayed another 27 Trojans. Unfortunately for him, this is also where he met Apollo and his fate in battle. Approaching Patroclus from within a thick mist, Apollo strikes Patroclus' back with his palm, causing Patroclus to lose consciousness. He then proceeds to break Patroclus' weapons and completely disarm him. A Dardanian warrior named Euphorbus was then able to hit Patroclus with the cast of his spear, striking him in the back. Patroclus, who was still alive, attempts to retreat back to his men. Seeing him take flight, Hector charges in, and he smites him with a thrust of his spear in the belly, driving it clean through. In short, Hector only lands the finishing blow. Patroclus' last words to Hector were, "If 20 such as thou had faced me, here would all have perished, slain by my spear." And that concludes episode 3. In the fourth and final episode, I will look into what many have claimed to be the greatest fight scene ever to be put on film, that between Achilles and Hector. This will be a very special episode that you won't want to miss. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next video.